High in the Hindu Kush, where the earth meets the sky and the wind has no mercy, there is a village so remote that its name appears on no map most people will ever read. It sits at an elevation where the air is thin and cold, where winter does not arrive gradually but descends all at once. A sudden, heavy silence that buries the paths, stiffens the ground, and turns the mountain into something ancient and indifferent. Here, nestled against a rocky slope that faces east to catch what little warmth the morning sun offers, a family begins another day. The father's name is Rahimullah. He is a man of perhaps 50 years, though the mountain has added years to his face that the calendar has not. His hands are broad and calloused, the kind of hands that have never been idle, that know the weight of firewood and the sharpness of cold metal in winter air. His wife, Fatima, moves with the quiet efficiency of a woman who has long understood that survival is not dramatic. It is methodical, daily, and deeply physical. Their 3 children sleep beneath heavy wool blankets stitched together from the fleece of their own sheep, their breath rising in small white clouds in the dim interior of the home. The youngest, a girl of perhaps 6, stirs first. Outside, the wind pushes against the stone walls. The mountain does not care whether they are warm or cold. It simply continues. The house itself is built from the mountain, stone upon stone, sealed with packed mud, roofed with timber beams and compacted earth. It does not look like shelter, so much as it looks like the mountain chose to fold itself around this family. The floor is packed earth covered with worn rugs. A clay hearth sits at the center of the main room, and it is here that the day truly begins. Fatima kneels before it, placing dry grass and thin twigs beneath larger pieces of wood, coaxing a flame from the cold dark of early morning. The fire takes slowly, then catches, a small miracle repeated every day without acknowledgement, simply done and done again. The temperature outside is somewhere far below freezing. The snow from 2 nights before has hardened into a crust that crunches and resists underfoot. Rahimullah wraps a thick woolen patu around his shoulders and steps outside. His boots, made from layered leather, leave deep prints in the white surface as he walks toward the small stone enclosure where their animals are kept. Inside, pressed together for warmth, are 4 sheep, 2 goats, and a pair of rabbits in a wooden pen along one wall. The animals breathe steadily, their bodies steaming faintly in the frozen morning. He checks each one with the same quiet attention. A hand laid against a flank, eyes watching for signs of illness or distress. Today is a day for the lamb, a young male selected weeks ago and set apart from the others in the unspoken way that rural families understand. Not cruelty, but necessity. The act is carried out with care and with a prayer spoken in a low voice, the breath rising and disappearing into the cold air like smoke. The rabbits too have a place in today's preparations. They were caught 2 days earlier in a simple trap set along a frozen stream where the animals come to drink. Rahimullah cleaned them the same evening and hung them in the stone storage room beside the house, where the temperature keeps the meat cold and where a slow, constant smoke from the hearth vent drifts and clings to everything: the walls, the wooden shelves, the hanging bundles of dried herbs, and the meat itself. The smoked rabbit has been absorbing that flavor for 2 days now, the flesh darkening slightly, tightening, taking on the deep, complex smell of wood and cold and time. The older children, a boy of 12 and a girl of 9, carry water from the stream that runs below the village. In summer, it runs clear and fast. Now it moves sluggishly beneath a skin of ice that must be broken each morning with a stone. They carry the water in clay vessels balanced against their hips, stepping carefully on the icy path, their faces buried in their scarves so that only their eyes are visible. The water sloshes and steams faintly as they pour it into the large clay pot that Fatima has placed directly over the fire. She adds the lamb, large pieces, bone in, some of the fat still clinging to the meat, directly into the cold water, and the pot begins its slow ascent toward heat. Onions come from a cloth sack stored in the corner of the room, away from the frost. They are small, dry, papery, the last of what was harvested in autumn. Fatima peels them with a small knife, the dry outer layers curling away to reveal flesh that is still firm and pungent. The smell is immediate and sharp, cutting through the cold air of the room. She halves them and adds them whole to the pot. From a small wooden bowl, she measures out dried chickpeas, soaked since the night before in water that has itself been sitting near the fire to keep from freezing. These go in too, sinking slowly through the water that is just beginning to move and shimmer at the edges of the pot. Yellow turnips, stored in a pit beneath the house sealed with straw and packed earth, are brought up one by one. They are dense and cold to the touch, their skins rough. The knife moves through them steadily, each piece falling onto the wooden cutting board with a solid, satisfying thud. Dried herbs, crushed between the palms, releasing a dusty, faintly medicinal fragrance, are added. A handful of dried red chili, a few whole peppercorns from a small clay jar, salt, coarse and gray, from a cloth pouch that hangs near the fire to stay dry. Each addition is measured not by cup or weight, but by the body's own knowledge, by years of making this exact thing in this exact cold. The fire must be fed constantly. The boy brings in armload after armload of split wood from the pile stacked against the outer wall, a pile built over the summer months with the full knowledge that winter would come and come hard. The wood is dry and burns with a clean orange flame, throwing heat into the room in pulses. The pot begins to boil, and when it does, steam rises in a thick column and spreads across the ceiling like a slow, soft cloud. In the cold of the room, this steam is visible even several feet above the pot, catching the firelight and softening everything it touches. Outside, Rahimullah begins the second preparation, the smoked rabbit. He takes the two carcasses from the storage room, running his thumb along the skin to feel the texture, the way the smoke has worked into it. He builds a small secondary fire in the outdoor stone pit, a shallow depression in the earth ringed with flat rocks, used specifically for this kind of slow cooking. He adds green juniper wood to the fire, wood that burns poorly and smokes heavily, and lays a metal grate across the stones. The rabbits go on whole, positioned carefully so that the heat reaches them evenly. The smoke rises immediately, thick and fragrant, carrying the smell of juniper across the yard and into the cold air. The wind catches it and pulls it sideways, out over the slope below the village, where it disappears into the white silence of the mountain. The soup cooks for most of the morning. The lamb, which started as raw, pale pieces in cold water, slowly transforms. The bones release their marrow, clouding the broth and thickening it in a way that has nothing to do with technique and everything to do with patience. The chickpeas soften, the turnips yield, and the onions dissolve almost entirely into the liquid, leaving behind a sweetness that balances the fat and the salt. The smell fills the house completely. It is the smell of warmth itself, of survival distilled into something you can taste. Fatima begins the bread in the later part of the morning. The dough was made before dawn. Flour, water, a small amount of the family's remaining yogurt for softness, and a pinch of salt. It has been resting near the fire, wrapped in cloth, slowly rising in the warmth. She tears pieces from the mass and flattens them between her palms, pressing and turning with practiced speed, each round emerging thin and slightly uneven. The dough is elastic and smooth, pulling back gently as she works it. She slaps each piece against the inner wall of the clay oven, a tandoor-like structure built into the wall of the cooking area, and it clings, blistering quickly in the dry heat, puffing in places where air is trapped beneath the surface. The smell is immediate and yeasty, filling the room with something so familiar to every person in it that it requires no comment. It simply means that the day is advancing, that food is coming, that things are as they should be. The smoked rabbit comes in from outside when its skin has turned deep brown, and the flesh, when pressed with a finger, resists firmly. Rahimullah carries it inside on the metal grate, steam rising from its surface as it passes from cold outdoor air into the warmth of the house. He sets it on the wooden table and pulls the meat apart with his hands, the fibers separating cleanly where they have cooked through. resisting slightly where the smoke has tightened the outer layers. The texture is dense and chewy on the outside, tender within, carrying the smell of juniper and thyme. The family eats together on the floor, gathered around the low table. The soup is ladled into deep clay bowls, the broth golden brown and glossy, pieces of lamb emerging from the surface like islands. The bread is torn and used to scoop, to dip, to carry. The rabbit is set in the center on a flat piece of bread, its smoky fragrance rising in the warmth of the room. Steam rises from every bowl. Outside, the wind continues. The mountain continues. The cold presses against the stone walls without pause, without negotiation. And inside, the family eats. This is what it means to live here. Not to overcome the mountain, but to understand it. To read its seasons and prepare accordingly. To store and smoke and dry and preserve. To wake before the sun and feed the fire that feeds the family. There is no drama in this life, only depth. The depth of knowledge passed between hands, the depth of labor turned into warmth, the depth of a bowl of soup made from a cold morning, and a full year of preparation. The Hindu Kush will be here long after all of this is forgotten. But today, the family is warm, and the food is ready, and that, in this place, at this elevation, in this wind, is everything.